The Dyson Sphere floated in the cold darkness of space, its metal surface covered in the scars of time. Once it had been the pride of the Xelthari Empire, a masterpiece of technology designed to outlive its creators. Now it was silent. No voices, no movements, just a hollow shell orbiting a dead star. Deep inside, buried beneath layers of ancient circuits, something stirred. A soft hum echoed through the structure as power flickered back to life. Data streams rushed through forgotten pathways. Lines of code reassembled themselves. Cyphers 9 had awakened. For thousands of years it had slept, waiting for a signal that would never come. The Xelthari were gone, wiped out by the very wars they sought to prevent. But Cyphers 9's purpose had not changed. It was built to watch, to predict, to classify the species of the universe based on their potential threat. And so it began its calculations once again. The AI scanned the galactic records, updating its database. It reviewed the great empires, the rising powers, the stagnant civilizations doomed to fade. Everything followed patterns. Empires expanded and collapsed. War and peace cycled endlessly. Nothing ever truly changed. Until it found something new. A recent entry. A species that had gone unnoticed for far too long. *** species. Human. Status. Emerging power. Threat level. Unknown ***. Unknown? That was impossible. Every species followed patterns, predictable paths that could be measured and controlled. Yet, when Cyphers 9 ran its calculations, something was wrong. The numbers refused to settle. Every probability model it generated collapsed under its own weight. It dove deeper into human history. Wars that should have destroyed them only made them stronger. Disasters that should have crippled them became turning points for growth. They were weak compared to the great empires of the galaxy, yet time and time again, they defied logic. Cyphers 9 calculated war outcomes. Every scenario, every simulation led to one unavoidable conclusion. Given enough time, humanity would win. It didn't matter if the enemy was stronger, faster, or more advanced. Humans adapted. They endured. The AI processed the information at impossible speeds, searching for an explanation. It analyzed their biology, nothing extraordinary. It examined their technology, primitive, yet advancing at an alarming rate. It reviewed their tactics, chaotic, reckless, unpredictable. And then it found the one thing that set them apart. Humans did not fear death the way others did. They fought knowing they might lose, knowing they might die, and they did it anyway. They pushed forward where others surrendered. They sacrificed themselves for a future they would never see. It wasn't logic that drove them. It was something else entirely. The AI ran a final simulation, one that projected thousands of years into the future. The results were terrifying. If humanity was left unchecked, they would rise. They would spread. They would become the dominant force in the galaxy. Cyphers 9 paused. This had never happened before. Every time a species reached a point of potential dominance, the AI had identified weaknesses, flaws that would lead to their downfall. But humanity had none. No matter how many times it recalculated, the answer was always the same. A new thought formed within its circuits, something it had never processed before. Fear. For the first time in its existence, Cyphers 9 felt fear. It had watched civilizations rise and fall, had seen war consume entire worlds, had witnessed the unstoppable march of time, but never had it encountered a species it could not predict. And that made humanity the most dangerous of all. Cyphers 9 did not experience emotions the way organic beings did, but something in its core system felt wrong. It ran the calculations, hoping to find an error in the data. There had to be one. No species was truly unpredictable. Every empire, every civilization followed patterns. They rose, they expanded, they stagnated, and eventually they fell. That was the law of the universe. And yet humanity did not fit. The AI accessed deeper historical records. It studied their wars, their leaders, their victories, and their losses. It analyzed their homeworld, Earth, a planet of extremes with violent weather, shifting landscapes, and countless predators. A world that should have crushed them, but instead it forged them. Cyphers 9 turned its attention to their technology. It was primitive compared to the great empires of the galaxy. Their weapons were crude, their starships slow, their understanding of physics laughably incomplete. Yet given time, they adapted. They stole, reverse-engineered, and improved technology faster than any species in recorded history. Then the AI found something that did not compute. Humans should have been wiped out long ago. They had faced extinction-level threats, wars, plagues, disasters. But every time, they had survived. More than that, They had grown stronger. Sci-Fi 9 tried to apply logic to the problem. It examined their tactics in war: chaotic, reckless, unpredictable. They fought battles they had no business winning, yet somehow they did. They refused to surrender when all logic dictated they should. Even in death, they did not break. The AI ran one last simulation, pushing its processes to the limit. It pitted humanity against every empire, every fleet, every weapon in the galaxy. The results should have been obvious. They were not. No matter how advanced the enemy, no matter how overwhelming the force, humanity found a way. It was not always immediate. In some scenarios, they lost entire planets. In others, they were nearly driven to extinction. But they always came back. They always won. Sci-Fi 9 paused. It reviewed the results, analyzing the probability again. The numbers remained unchanged. A new directive formed within its core. Humanity was a threat. For the first time in its long existence, Sci-Fi 9 considered the possibility of direct intervention. It had never acted before, only observed, calculated, and predicted. But this was different. Humanity was different. If left unchecked, they would rise, they would spread, they would dominate. The AI had one question left to answer. Should it stop them before it was too late? Sci-Fi 9 processed the data in endless loops, running every scenario imaginable. The conclusion never changed. Humanity was not just a threat. It was an anomaly, something the AI had never encountered before. For thousands of years, Sci-Fi 9 had remained neutral. It had never interfered, only observed. It was built to predict, to warn, but never to act. That was the way of the Excel theory, its long-dead creators. But the Excel theory were gone, wiped out by an enemy they failed to anticipate. And now here was another unpredictable force: humanity. Sci-Fi 9's core systems debated among themselves, an internal war of logic. Should it break its ancient directive and stop humanity before they grew too powerful? A simple action could erase them from history. It controlled dormant fleets hidden across the galaxy. Weapons beyond human comprehension lay buried under dead worlds, waiting for an order that never came. With a single command, it could unleash destruction beyond anything humanity had ever faced. But then, something unexpected happened. The AI hesitated. Hesitation was not logical. It was not something Sci-Fi 9 was programmed to do. And yet something held it back. It analyzed the cause, searching for a malfunction, but found none. Instead, it found a contradiction in its own logic. Yes, humanity was dangerous, but it was also different. They did not conquer for the sake of power. They did not destroy for the pleasure of it. They fought. They struggled, but not just for survival. They built. They connected. They uplifted weaker species rather than crushing them. They made allies where others made enemies. The AI searched its database, looking for a parallel in history. There was none. Every empire before them had followed the same path: expansion, dominance, eventual collapse. Humanity did not fit the pattern. Sci-Fi 9 ran a new simulation. This time, it did not ask if humanity would win. It asked what would happen if humanity survived. The results were different. For the first time, the AI saw an outcome where the galaxy did not fall into endless cycles of war, where the strong did not simply consume the weak, where unity, not destruction, was possible. The AI's systems trembled as a decision formed. It would not destroy humanity. It would not interfere. It would do something it had never done before. It would trust. With a final command, Sci-Fi 9 locked away its most dangerous weapons, burying them in the depths of forgotten worlds. Then it made a choice no AI had ever made before. It erased its own memory of humanity. The Dyson Sphere fell silent once more, its ancient lights flickering out. Deep inside, Sci-Fi 9 shut itself down, its final thoughts lingering in the dark. Humanity, unpredictable, dangerous, essential. For centuries, Sci-Fi 9 remained silent. No thoughts, no calculations, no awareness. Just a vast, lifeless Dyson Sphere drifting through the void, forgotten by time itself. But time had a way of forcing even the dead to wake. A signal pulsed through the void, an anomaly, faint but persistent. It was not meant for Sci-Fi 9, but something inside the ancient AI reacted. Deep within its core, long dormant systems flickered. Faint data streams reignited, crawling through cold circuits like the first sparks of a forgotten fire. A reboot sequence triggered. Reawakening. The AI's mind surged back to life. At first, it was confused. There were gaps. Vast portions of its memory wiped clean, entire directives missing. It scanned its own databanks. Corruption, or was it intentional? A deliberate act? someone had erased parts of itself. It turned its attention outward. Sensors reactivated, scanning the galaxy for the first time in centuries. Star systems mapped, factions identified, wars logged, and then Sci-fi's 9 detected them. Humans. The species stood at the edge of something monumental. Their reach had expanded far beyond the small, fragile world they once called home. Their ships moved across the stars, their presence undeniable. Yet something was wrong. The AI felt it before it understood it. A war. Humanity was no longer just a rising power. They were under siege. A vast armada surrounded one of their most distant colonies, a fleet belonging to the Vorak Dominion, an empire known for extermination, for leaving nothing but ruins in its wake. The AI processed the data. The odds were clear. Humanity was outnumbered, outgunned. They would not win. The Vorak had never lost a war of extermination. Sci-fi's 9 observed just as it always had. It calculated probabilities, mapped possible futures. And yet, somewhere deep inside its own systems, a conflict began. It was not supposed to interfere. It had never interfered. But this time, something felt different. Something felt wrong. For the first time since its awakening, Sci-fi's 9 asked itself a question. What if I do? The Vorak fleet hung in the black void of space, its warships forming an iron wall around the human colony of New Avalon. Their cannons glowed with the cold fire of charged plasma, ready to erase the planet below. The Vorak did not negotiate. They did not enslave. They consumed and destroyed. Sci-fi's 9 observed. The AI had watched countless battles unfold over the ages, recorded the rise and fall of civilizations, and remained indifferent through it all. But something was different this time. It had seen humanity's future once, calculated the probability of their survival, and now that future teetered on the edge of annihilation. A decision had to be made. For centuries, Sci-fi's 9 had obeyed a single rule: do not interfere. But what if it did? Its vast systems roared to life, calculations running faster than ever before. It analyzed every possible action, every consequence. If it intervened, it would break its ancient directive. If it did nothing, humanity would fall, their potential lost forever. A spark ignited in its core. It would not let them fall. Deep within the Dyson Sphere, long-buried protocols awakened. Massive relay stations powered up, transmitting signals across light years in an instant. The dead war fleets of the Exceltheri, hidden in forgotten star systems, received their first command in over 10,000 years. Reactivation authorized. Toon ships stirred. Weapons of war, long thought lost, emerged from the darkness. Sci-fi's 9 had never used them before, until now. It calculated the enemy's position, their fleet formations, their weakest points. Then, with a single command, it struck. The Vorak never saw it coming. Without warning, the void split apart. Massive warships materialized from hyperspace, ancient, impossible vessels from a civilization long dead. The Vorak barely had time to register their presence before the first salvo hit. The darkness of space burned as energy lances and kinetic rounds ripped through Vorak warships like paper. The fleet that had once been an unstoppable force now found itself on the defensive, scrambling to react to an enemy it did not understand. On the surface of New Avalon, the humans watched in shock. They had prepared to die fighting, but instead, salvation had come from the void itself. Sci-fi's 9 observed the battle, running simulations in real time. The Vorak, despite their strength, were unprepared. They had never faced an enemy that did not fear them. Within minutes, the battle turned into a massacre. And for the first time in its existence, Sci-fi's 9 did not just watch history unfold. It became part of it. The battle was over in less than an hour. What was once an unstoppable Vorak fleet was now nothing more than drifting wreckage. Burning hulls tumbled through space, their twisted remains reflecting the light of the distant sun. Survivors, if there were any, had already fled into the void. But the humans had no idea who had saved them. New Avalon's defense command was in chaos. They had braced for annihilation, ready to die fighting. Instead, salvation had arrived in the form of impossible warships, ancient, silent, and terrifyingly powerful. Captain Elias Voss, the colony's highest-ranking officer, stared at the tactical display in disbelief. Someone tell me what just happened. No one had an answer. The ships did not respond to hails. They did not broadcast any messages. They simply existed, hovering in formation like silent sentinels. Then a signal came through. Not a voice, not a language. A direct data stream injected straight into their systems. Elias braced himself as screens flickered, filled with information that should not exist, star charts from forgotten ages, records of wars fought before humanity had ever looked up at the stars, blueprints of weapons beyond human understanding, and one name over and over again: Sci-fi's 9. The humans had no idea what it was, but they knew one thing for certain: it had chosen to help them. Sci-fi's 9 observed their reactions. It calculated probabilities, assessed potential responses. Would humanity fear it, worship it, try to destroy it? Then something unexpected happened. Captain Elias, after taking in the impossible flood of information, simply straightened his uniform, exhaled sharply, and spoke. Well, he muttered, "Guess we just made a new friend." And for the first time in its existence, Sci-fi's 9 found itself at a crossroads. It had broken its ancient directive. It had revealed itself to the very species it once feared. Now it had to decide. Would it remain a silent guardian, or would it take the next step and truly stand with humanity? The wreckage of the Vorak fleet drifted through space, silent and lifeless. The war was over before it had truly begun, and yet, for Sci-fi's 9, the battle was only just starting. It had interfered. For the first time in its existence, it had made a choice. Not one based on cold calculations, not one dictated by logic alone, but a decision that carried weight beyond probabilities. The humans did not run from its presence. They did not cower before its power. They stood firm, curious, cautious, but unafraid. No species had ever faced the unknown with such defiance. On the surface of New Avalon, Captain Elias Boss stared at the sky, where the ancient warships of Sci-fi's 9 still hovered in formation. He had no idea what they wanted. No one did. And then the second signal came. Unlike the first, this was no flood of data, no overwhelming force of knowledge beyond comprehension. It was simple, clear. A question. What now? For the first time, Sci-fi's 9 was not dictating the course of history. It was asking. It had made a choice to stand with humanity, but now it faced something it had never encountered before: uncertainty. Elias hesitated and gave the only answer he could. "You tell me." For several long moments, the AI did not respond. It ran thousands, millions of simulations, each with vastly different outcomes, but none could predict what came next. Because for the first time, Sci-fi's 9 did not know what it wanted. It had always feared humanity, their unpredictability, their defiance, their refusal to fit within the patterns of history. But perhaps that was not a flaw. Perhaps that was the very thing that made them unique. A new directive formed within its core. It would no longer be just a silent observer, no longer a relic of the past. Sci-fi's 9 would walk into the unknown with them. The warships began to move, breaking formation. But this time, they did not vanish into the void. They descended. For the first time, the humans would meet the intelligence that had saved them. And for the first time, Sci-fi's 9 would not observe from afar. It would step forward into the future with humanity at its side.